On June 18, 2023, a submersible called Titan, operated by OceanGate, vanished from the international waters in the North Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. The submersible was on a tourist expedition to view the wreckage of the historic RMS Titanic with 5 wealthy individuals on board, including the founder and CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush. Inside the Titan and along Stockton were British billionaire Hamish Harding, French diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet, prominent Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his 19-year-old son, Sulman. Communication with Titan was lost just after 1 hour and 45 minutes into its dive, creating a worldwide worry about the life of the 5 people. Due to the estimated 3 days of oxygen supply, and knowing that even if the submersible could come back to the surface, it was still locked from the outside, a run against time started to save the passengers. This massive rescue operation started, led by the US and Canada's Coast Guards. Still, it was fruitless until early on June 22nd, when a robot diving vehicle found the first signs of the Titan's wreckage, leading to the unfortunate conclusion that there were no survivors, and the submersible imploded in the ocean depths. Let's go through what happened, and what we can learn from the incident, so no more lives are lost like this in the future. Firstly, let's talk about the company behind Titan, a company called OceanGate Incorporated. This company was launched in 2009 by Stockton Rush and Guillermo Solon and provides submersibles for tourism, research, and exploration. The now-deceased CEO, Stockton Rush, moved from San Francisco to Seattle to work at McDonnell Douglas as a flight test engineer for the F-15 Eagle to pursue his dream of becoming an astronaut. After witnessing the launch of Spaceship One in the Mojave Desert in 2004, he decided he did not want to travel to space as a tourist. Instead, he decided to take control and shifted his focus to undersea exploration. Stockton was married to Wendy Rush, descended from Isidore and Ida Strauss, 2 of the people who died in the original Titanic catastrophe on April 15, 1912, and this ties to the story being told today. The tragic Titan event occurred during a deep-sea tourism expedition to examine the Titanic's wreckage. Unfortunately, every passenger in the submersible paid $250,000 to participate in a one-way trip that would unexpectedly end their lives. Before we discuss this particular tragedy in more detail, let's first emphasize how challenging deep-sea exploration is. In fact, more humans have been in space than humans explored the deep oceans, and there's a reason for that. Due to the lack of gravity and resistance, flying becomes easier than exploring the deep sea, and it's all related to pressure. The deeper you dive, the more substantial the pressure is because water is a way more dense fluid than air. For example, for every 10 meters or 32.8 feet you dive, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere, or around 14.7 psi. The Titanic wrecks are lying at the bottom of the ocean, at around 3,800 meters, where the pressure lies around 376 atmospheres. Let's put this in perspective. If you lay your back on a 1x1 footboard at 100 meters, you would feel the pressure of 10 atmospheres, which is around 145 psi. That means you would feel the weight of 20,880 pounds. In comparison, if we take the deepest diving Oscar-class submarine in operation today in the Russian Navy, which can be found at around 828 meters in depth, equivalent to the height of the Burj Khalifa, the pressure felt at that level is approximately 82 atmospheres. The weight on that board would be around 173,520 pounds. Now at 3,800 meters, we can find the Titanic with a pressure of 376 atmospheres, or 5,532 psi. The same board would weigh 797,000 pounds. And even though thinking that the Titan was ready to dive up to 4,000 meters sounds crazy, humans in the past have already achieved more remarkable feats in the ocean. James Cameron, an ocean explorer and filmmaker which you may know from movies like Titanic, Avatar, or The Terminator, already dived into the deepest point on Earth in 2012, the Challenger Deep, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. He achieved that feat using the Deep Sea Challenger, or DCV-1, a deep-diving submersible built in Australia, reaching a depth of 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet. Here, you would feel 1,090 atmospheres of pressure, and that 1x1 footboard would weigh 2.3 million pounds. If we compare it to an airplane flying at 36,000 feet,
the pressure outside would be around 10 or 12 psi. But even though apparently OceanGate's Titan was prepared for such a dive, safety concerns were raised and ignored. Analyzing today, Titan was a ticking bomb waiting to explode. First, the way the company designed the submersible, it had to be closed by the crew with 17 to 18 bolts from the outside. Even in an emergency, there was no way for the passengers to open it from the inside. We understand these submersibles have to hold the pressure and be highly thigh, but there should be a way to open it if necessary. Even if they could return to the surface, they would still have to be found in the ocean before running out of oxygen and suffocating to dead. The Titan also had no navigation system, locator, or even a black box like airplanes. Most submarines use GPS for near-surface navigation, which doesn't work in deep waters. In deep waters, they use dead reckoning course information, using data gathered from the ship's gyro compass to estimate local ocean currents and speed measurements. They also use inertial navigation systems, which provide an estimated position.
The Titan, in contrast, seems to rely on data from the surface support vessel. In 2019, OceanGate wrote a blog post explaining why they were not certified by any ship authority, and this is a huge red flag. According to OceanGate, the vast majority of marine and aviation accidents resulted from operator error and not mechanical failure. Unfortunately, this arrogance and disrespect by safety rules led to Stockton ending his life and taking another 4 people with him. Journalist David Pogue, who rode on the Titan in 2022, said in a recent interview that the support vessel lost track of the Titan for about 4 or 5 hours. He says it was quiet and tense, and they turned off the ship's internet to prevent the passengers from tweeting. He says that installing a locator beacon was actually debated during this event, which was completely ignored. Just imagine how terrifying it should have been to be deep in the ocean, knowing no one knew where you were and that there was no way of coming out. Not only that, but David also said some things seemed unsophisticated. When he brought this up with Stockton, he said, "Yeah, that's true, but these are just bells and whistles. The part that keeps you alive, the part we care about, is that carbon fiber cylinder and the titanium end caps he designed in conjunction with NASA, which is buttoned down." The submersible was also controlled by a video game controller, which Stockton used to say that even a child could use, and they had spare ones in case something didn't go as planned. As we all know, military products undergo extensive testing, making them operational in every possible event. But again, another red flag was raised when it seemed the company was being cheap. And they were being cheap even though they were charging $250,000 per trip. How can this be? And how did OceanGate come up with the Titan? In order to test and learn more about this entire endeavor, OceanGate first bought the submersible Antipodes back in 2012. Subsequently, they built Cyclops 1 in partnership with the Applied Physics Laboratory at the University of Washington, which was a deeper sea vessel with a maximum depth of 500 meters. Still not deep enough for the Titanic, but this was their next step and iteration. In the early design, the hull was made of carbon fiber, so the entire submersible would dive vertically with pivoting seats to ensure the passengers remained upright. Rumors said that Boeing worked with OceanGate and the University of Washington on their initial design analysis, but we'll get to that in a second because there's a little more to the story. Finally, they finished Titan as their final product, capable of diving up to 4,000 meters deep. One of the most important things to remember about the Titan is that it is a carbon fiber and titanium hulled submersible. And this is fancy because we have been using high-strength steel and aluminum for a long time, and have data engineering data on how they fail, what to look for, and test methodologies. However, carbon fiber is still relatively unknown. In fact, any car you have ever driven probably has little carbon fiber, with the exception being supercars. Spencer Composites was the business that manufactured the composite pressure hull for Steve Fawcett's solo deep flight Challenger, and OceanGate set a contract with them in January 2017 for the carbon composite cylinder. After Fawcett died away, Richard Branson's Virgin Oceanic purchased D-Flight Challenger. Virgin Oceanic announced plans to undertake a series of 5 dives to the ocean's deepest points, but Deep Flight refused to support the idea because the vessel was only intended to dive once. Actually, it was intended to break the record for deepest dive and then be retired as a Smithsonian exhibit, but the strength of the Deep Flight Challenger does decrease after each dive,
according to Adam Wright, the firm's president. This is a crucial part because sometimes in engineering, it comes down to the operational lifetime and undersea performance. But prepare for what you're about to hear, as this may shock you. After the Titan disappeared, the University of Washington said their applied physics laboratory had no involvement in designing or testing the Titan. Boeing also said they didn't partner with the Titan, either building or developing it. And finally, NASA also said they only had a Space Act agreement with OceanGate. Again, no involvement with building, testing, or designing any parts of the submersible. Was OceanGate trying to increase its credibility and prices by associating with these companies? Lying about everything while putting their customers in danger? But there's more to it. In a 2018 counterclaim lawsuit, a former OceanGate employee claimed that he was fired for raising issues with quality control and testing of potential flaws in the same experimental submersible that imploded this week while carrying its crew and passengers on an underwater tourist excursion to see the Titanic wreck. Yes, the Titan. Engineer and submarine pilot David Lockridge asserted in his counterclaim against OceanGate that the Everett, Washington-based business engaged him in 2015 to guarantee the security of all crew members and customers during the submersible and surface operations of the Titan. He claimed the company fired him after expressing his worries regarding the minisub's hull's testing and design. In its complaint, OceanGate charged Lockridge with violating his employment agreement by disclosing trade secrets to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration when he filed a false report claiming that he was discharged in retaliation for being a whistleblower. In November 2018, Lockridge and OceanGate settled outside of court. For now, it remains unclear what caused the submersible to implode, or if any of Lockridge's concerns were a factor, but there are great chances of those being the main reasons it happened. Still, in 2018, Stockton Rush made another descent that showed more signs that the submersible was not ready for such deep dives.
As you may know, submersibles are like giant balloons with air inside, making it hard for them to dive deep, and that's why they have different systems to accomplish that. Yet, while doing these, Stockton had to use vertical thrusters to help, which interfered with the communication systems. Again, they lost contact for 1 hour, and even though that happened, Stockton was still excited to be the second after James Cameron to be able to dive to 13,000 feet. Instead of trying to figure out what happened and guaranteeing it would never happen again, he was celebrating. And it happened again. A YouTuber called Alan says he was going to dive in the Titan in 2021, but that it had issues coming back to the surface at that time. He ended up going in 2022, but he says he wouldn't repeat the experience because the communications with the exterior were failing. Unfortunately, Stockton ended up passing away in the incident as well. Otherwise, he would be proven guilty of everything that happened. The lack of responsibility, ego, and arrogance behind the creation of the Titan led to the death of this group of explorers. As humans, we're always evolving and wanting to find out more about the unknown. Either in space or in the deep sea, using old or new technology, there are always risks associated. And more than ever, we live in an age where people who to be the first to do the next big thing. It can be to dive deeper into the ocean, the first to jump from a higher cliff, or the first to travel to a new planet. But please remember to ensure everything is done right by every part involved. No life should be wasted like that. Hopefully, this incident will be a warning sign and a lesson for the future, and how you should enjoy every moment of your life with the people you love.